just need to share real quick. Now, where are the apps? All right. Is the stream up? Should be. Yeah, there we go. Stream. All right. I just need a copy paste. Oh my word. All right. Oh, hello. We have someone on. I'm just sharing the stream really quick. So I'm gonna wait for, and I'm also gonna wait for a couple more people to come on. But if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and then I will get to them in a minute. The whole process of sharing the stream is a little difficult. I need to find a more efficient way to do this. Now my internet's kind of crapping out on me. So anyway, we'll get started while I wait for my internet to load. Okay, so welcome to episode 10. As you can see, the logo is Christmas themed because, well, I mean, it's Christmas break. So, yeah. So today I'm going to talk a little, because there's been some bowl games, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the bowl games for football. I'm also going to talk about the NFL playoff picture, what I think are possibilities for like who could sneak in, who's probably not going to make it in, like who's pretenders, who's maybe falling off, and then I'm also going to look at the college basketball rankings. Now that we're kind of towards the midseason and we're starting to get into the in-conference play, which I think is more important than the start of the season. Just because the start of the season, you don't really get a lot of in-conference play. It's more just like big matches that are set up based on what the teams looked like years prior. It's not really set up based on what the teams look like now. And there's a lot that changes between the teams because the transfer portal, incoming freshmen, injuries, all that stuff. So, anyway, let's get started here. So here, like, I'm just using the, I entered in the Capital One Bowl Mania game. That is it's kind of like Pick'em. It's a fantasy, it's a game on ESPN that you can play. And I did the same format with the college Pick'em where you pick who wins and who loses. So in this first game, you have Ohio versus Georgia Southern. Ohio slammed them by 20. And then you've got Florida A&M Rattlers versus Howard, the Howard Bison. They won by 4 points there. And then the Raging Cajuns lost to Jacksonville State, and Miami, Ohio lost to Appalachian State. And New Mexico State lost to Fresno State, which I was a little shocked by that just because of how New Mexico State has been playing this year. But, I mean, good for Fresno State for getting the win. And then the last few, you have UCLA, Boise State. UCLA crushed them. I wasn't too surprised by this. I mean, Boise State they're good, but UCLA's starting to get really good, and I think they wanted to make a good impression going into the Big Ten, a bowl game it would make a good impression for them. Um, then you've got Cal versus Texas Tech. I thought Cal would win. Their offense has been pretty good this year. I mean, a lot of the Pac-12 offenses have been pretty solid so far this year. But Texas Tech came through and they pulled out the win. Um, Texas Tech hasn't really been the most consistent team, which is one of the reasons why I didn't pick them. But this is a very good way for them to end the year. And then there's the last bowl game that happened was Western Kentucky versus Old Dominion, and Western Kentucky pulled, I think it was 28-point comeback to win the game against Old Dominion. Lots of people picked Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is a great offense, but their defense, I mean, as you can see, they let up 35 points. Their defense isn't all that great, and their defense hasn't really been that great this year. But I mean, still, they put together a solid effort at the end and took the win. So I think that was that was only 8 games out of the 43 bowl games. You have coming up for tomorrow, or I guess today at 8 p.m. is the Marshall and UTSA in the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. That's at 8 p.m. tonight. And then you've got, for the rest of this week, you've got the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl. That is between Syracuse and South Florida. And that locks at 7 p.m. on Thursday. I think this will actually be a very interesting bowl game, just because South Florida put up a pretty strong defensive effort against Bama, and Syracuse hasn't really been consistent all year. So I picked Syracuse to win, but South Florida could sneak up on them and take the win. And then you've got UCF versus Georgia Tech in the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. The names of these bowls is sometimes just baffling to me. But you have the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. That's between UCF and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I picked Georgia Tech. I liked the way they played against Georgia in their rivalry game just before conference championships. I think Georgia Tech could sneak up on UCF, and UCF hasn't really been very consistent. So, I went with Georgia Tech on that one. And then you've got a big slate of games on Saturday. You've got Northern Illinois versus Arkansas State. And Arkansas State has been kind of on a revenge tour ever since they got beat like 73-0. I think they're probably going to win that game. Then you've got Duke versus Troy. That's also on Saturday. I picked Duke. I mean, Duke has been pretty solid all year. They, like, towards the end, they kind of went on a downward spiral, but I mean, that happened last year too, actually. They went on a downward spiral around this time last year. I think I'm actually going to change my pick to Troy, just because I liked the defensive effort that Troy put up in their last game. Oh wow, there's still more Saturday games. In the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl is Air Force versus James Madison. I have James Madison. James Madison is they've been on fire this whole year. I mean, not just in football either. They're ranked in basketball too. I mean, them being ranked in basketball is not influencing my pick to pick them over Air Force. Air Force has just kind of been on a... They lost their momentum kind of from the start of the year. And I like the direction that JMU has been heading with their program, so I'm gonna pick JMU. Then there's a lot of bowl games on Saturday. Wow. Um, in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, which weirdly enough there is no school from Idaho in this bowl. You have the Utah State Aggies versus Georgia State Panthers. Um, I'm picking. I think Utah State should win that game. Um, the 68. I know it looks like I'm looking off to the side, but that's because I have the dual monitor set up, so I'm looking at my computer and not the main screen. So just for anyone that's wondering, 68 Ventures Bowl. That's Eastern Michigan versus South Alabama. South Alabama has they've looked pretty solid in their games that they've won. Even the ones they've lost, they've looked not too bad. So I'm going to pick them over Eastern Michigan. This Northwestern Utah game should be interesting, this game is the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. And like I said, it's Northwestern versus Utah, and both these programs, at least like this season, have kind of had the opposite trajectory. Utah, their starting quarterback was injured. Northwestern they've racked up a streak of wins. Their most recent being against Illinois, their in-state rival. So I did still pick Utah though. I think Utah wants to make a good impression going into the Big 12, and a bowl game win will do that and make them look more like a solid program and ensure hope for the future of their team. And then the last game for this week is what is this name? Easy Post Hawaii Bowl. That's San Jose State versus Coastal Carolina. I've liked Coastal Carolina's defense this whole year, despite their 7-5 record. So I picked them over San Jose State. San Jose State hasn't really been too consistent. They've had some pretty big wins, but they've also had some pretty bad losses. So I just don't trust them enough to pick them. And then I'm gonna skip down just because I'm sure we'll get to these other bowl games like next week. I want to get to the New Year's Six games real quick, just to take a look at those, because there's some pretty good ones here. Like we have the Ohio State Missouri game. I picked Missouri. Lots of people are picking Ohio State, but I picked Missouri because I've loved this Missouri team all year, despite their losses. They're a really solid team, and I think they could sneak up on Ohio State in this bowl game. I think the SEC will take this game here against Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. But in the Peach Bowl, I picked Penn State over Ole Miss. I think Penn State's defense is they're very tough, and if they win, they'll be the only team in college football history to win every New Year's Six bowl game, which hasn't been done. So they would be the first ones to do it. I know James Franklin also kind of needs this win for his job. So I would say Penn State, they have a lot riding on this game, low key. And then you've got Florida State, Georgia, and honestly, I'm not even sure if this game is going to happen, just because apparently there's a press conference that was supposed to happen, but Florida State canceled on the press conference. So this bowl game might not actually happen. But I think if this bowl game was to happen, I picked Florida State. I know, you're probably thinking, why on earth would you pick Florida State? Well, Florida State, they have a lot more riding on this game, I think. I don't think they're not gonna be too happy about this loss, and I don't really think they're gonna rally to go up against Florida State's defense. I think Florida State's defense is gonna, I mean, they're gonna do a lot of the work, but with Rodemaker coming back, I think it's entirely possible that Florida State, like, because he looked good. Like, Rodemaker did have flashes in his last game, but I mean, I think if Rodemaker was playing in the ACC championship, if he wasn't injured, Florida State might have been in the playoffs instead of Bama. Like, they might have racked up enough points to make it in, but it's all up in the air. The over under is amazing though. Florida State is plus 450 underdogs, and Georgia is minus 600, which is crazy. Next New Year's Six game, we have Oregon versus Liberty. I mean, come on. I know Liberty's undefeated, but Oregon, like, I don't think Oregon wants to lose this game. I know they're probably gonna go in and not really care, but I mean, I probably would have picked Liberty if Bo Nix wasn't starting, but Bo Nix is going to be in this game, so yeah, I think the Ducks are going to take this one. And then, of course, we have the last two New Year's Six games. We have Michigan and Alabama, and Washington and Tennessee in the Rose Bowl and All-State Sugar Bowl. I picked Michigan, and I think it's kind of interesting that, like, lots of people are picking Bama, but Michigan is not the underdog in this game. I like this Michigan team a lot more than I have in years past. I think, as they say, the third time's the charm. So, but I think Bama, Bama has a lot to prove going into this game. Like, for them, in my opinion, it's a must win because they have to be like, oh, well, we deserve to be here. Otherwise, people will say, oh, well, maybe Florida State should have been in, or maybe Georgia should have been in. But yeah, it's a game Bama needs to win in that sense, and Michigan needs to win. Because if they lose, then I think it'll be bowl game number 7 in a row that they have lost, and also to beat the sign stealing allegations. If they win, then they can say we weren't sign stealing, so you can't say that it was because of that. But yeah, I do like this Michigan team. I like their defense a lot. I think their offense is kind of sneaky. I think it looked a little shaky, like kind of in the Big Ten championships against Iowa, despite what the score says, and it also looked a little shaky against Ohio State. But I think it's partially just because Michigan plays pretty smart. So, like, some of the stats don't really show why they played the way they played. Like, with Ohio State, they ran the ball more. Same thing with Penn State. Like, Michigan ran the ball the entire time because of Penn State's pass rush. They didn't want to deal with the pass rush. Didn't want to risk turnovers. So they ran the ball more. Which makes J.J. McCarthy's stats for completions look really poor, in that they don't trust the quarterback, which I don't think that's true. I think they do trust him. This is, I think, his third year at Michigan, so they have no reason to not trust him. And then the last matchup, Washington versus Texas. I have Washington winning this game. Washington has been underdogs this entire year. They just keep finding a way to win. Texas, I'm not really sure how. They arguably had a pretty easy. They probably had the easiest conference championship, in my opinion, going up against Oklahoma State. a very inconsistent team. Oklahoma State has a great run game, but they don't. They're just not very consistent with their wins. And Texas was. They finally got Quinn Ewers back, so I'm not sure. I mean, this game was the Washington Texas game was probably the hardest to pick for me, just because both the teams look good and like you've got Washington finding ways to win. They've been underdogs the whole year. Like they have a quarterback that's a Heisman candidate in Michael Penix Jr. Their wide receiver core is great. Their defense is a little shaky. Texas, and I mean, against this Texas offense, it's gonna be tough. But I think Washington is gonna sneak away in this game just by a small margin. If Washington has the ball at the end of the game, if they're losing by a touchdown or less, then I think they take the game. I mean, Washington's offense was able to get 2-point conversions against Oregon, so we'll see if they pull stuff like that in the playoffs in like a week. No, not a week. 2 weeks, like a week, 2 weeks, week and a half. Yeah. All right, let's pivot to the NFL playoff picture. I don't know why this is not loading. I don't like it when it does that. Yeah, we don't like it when it just decides to not work. Okay, I guess while that loads, we can go to the college basketball rankings. So we have Purdue at 1, Kansas City 2, Houston 3, Arizona 4, UConn 5, Marquette 6, Oklahoma 7th, Tennessee 8th, Kentucky 9th, Baylor 10th, UNC 11th, Creighton 12th, Illinois 13th, Florida Atlantic 14th, Gonzaga 15th, Colorado State at 16, BYU 17, Clemson 18, Texas 19, JMU 20. See, they were, like I was saying earlier, they're ranked in basketball as well. Duke at 21, Virginia 22, Memphis 23, Wisconsin 24, and Ole Miss at 25. So SEC low-key has a lot of teams up here in the rankings. They have, I mean, if we're counting future SEC teams, then we're going to count Oklahoma here. But Oklahoma would be the future SEC team. You've got Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas, and Ole Miss. Big Ten, I mean, Big Ten surprisingly does not have a lot in here. They have Purdue and Wisconsin, 2 teams, and then even the Pac-12. Normally, the Pac-12 has a lot of teams in the rankings as well, but they only have, to my knowledge, Arizona. Yeah, they only have Arizona. So the atmosphere looks a little different in the rankings for college football. And of course, we have a lot of teams from the Big East as well, or at least the teams in the Big East are having a good showing in the rankings. You got UConn at 5 and Marquette at 6. And I think, yeah, that's it for the Big East. And BYU's in Big 12. Yeah. So, yeah, but these rankings are kind of interesting to me a little just because, like, Oklahoma, I don't really understand why they're there. They haven't really played any challenging opponents to my knowledge. I think they're playing North Carolina soon, if I am not mistaken. Yes, they are. They are actually playing them tomorrow at 8 p.m. That should be an interesting... I think North Carolina's probably going to upset them. You've got Alabama, Arizona. Alabama, I'm kind of surprised Alabama's not ranked just because of how good they did in the tournament last year. I mean, they were a number one ranked team, and now all of a sudden they're just not on the rankings at all. Yes, that's a little strange. But yeah, going back to the rankings, Purdue moves up to 1 because they beat Arizona and Indy. Arizona moves down to 4. Kansas goes up to either they were at 2 or they stayed at 2 from last time. Kansas, I think their most recent win against Indiana is probably their best win. And it might seem a little biased just because, Hoosier Nation, but I think this was Kansas's best win because Kansas has just in program history has never won at Assembly Hall. So, and they got their first win at Assembly Hall. And Indiana they played a solid game. They were leading going into the first half. They gave up the lead, I think, with like 5 minutes to go, like 5-7 minutes to go, and then Kansas kind of ran away a little bit. But Indiana played a great game. So I think this is a really strong road win for Kansas. I mean, it's it looks like it's their only road win because their other wins that weren't at home were at neutral sites. So, yeah, I mean, neutral sites don't count as away or home. It just goes on the overall. Houston's at 3. They were good last year. Like, they're consistently in the top. And so is Arizona and UConn and Marquette. Oklahoma, you don't normally see them up there. If they lose to North Carolina, they're going to fall a few spots. Probably more than you would think. Like, you would think maybe they would fall. If they lost to North Carolina, maybe they'd fall. Just because they're so close in ranking. Maybe they'd fall, like, 5 spots. I think they fall 10 if they lose to North Carolina. But yeah, and then Tennessee's normally up in the top 25, and so is Kentucky. North Carolina is 2. Baylor's kind of off and on in the top 25. Sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't. Creighton has recently become consistent in the top 25. Illinois is also kind of off and on. They're one of those off and on teams in the top 25. At least, like, just based on history and, like, just recent history. Just, like, over the past few years. Florida Atlantic, I think they were in the top 25 last year, I believe. I don't think I've ever seen them this high, though, which is interesting. And then you have Gonzaga at 15. They're consistently up in the top 25 as well. Colorado State being in the top 25 is kind of new. I mean, they've been in the tournament recently. I know they lost to Michigan 2 years ago now, when Michigan made that run to the Sweet 16. BYU, you don't normally see them there. Clemson, last year, I think they just missed out on being in the tournament. They were one of the first 4 teams out. But now they're in the top 25. Texas, they're a little bit further down in the rankings than they were last year, but Texas is still a good team. Duke, normally, I mean, we're all used to seeing Duke up in that top spot, but or like in the top 10, but they're still consistently in the top 25. So is Virginia. Memphis, they're 23rd. They have recently become pretty consistent in the top 25 as well. With Houston in the Big 12 now, Memphis is kind of ruling the AAC. So I think you're going to see Memphis be in the tournament a lot more, and maybe even at a higher seed because of that conference championship win that they're most likely going to have. Wisconsin at 24. Um, it's kind of new. Wisconsin's always been kind of a sleeper team. Um, they'll be ranked like in the mid numbers, but they can make runs in the tournament. Um, I mean, if Wisconsin's ranked too high, though, they will sometimes choke. Then Ole Miss, I don't think I've ever seen them in the top 25. Um, yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that. That's a new thing for me. So, oh my god. CBS Sports is screwing me over. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we can talk about the NFL. For college, going back to college football though, I think I'm gonna stream some of the games tomorrow. Let's just look at what's tomorrow. Or I guess, yeah, there's some games today, but I think I'm gonna wait till tomorrow to stream some of them. I think this Duke Baylor game should be interesting. I'll probably be watching. Actually, no, this is a really great slate of games for tomorrow, with Duke and Baylor, two top 25 teams going at it. Same thing with Oklahoma UNC, two top 15 teams going at it. Jackson State Gonzaga, that might be interesting. I mean, Gonzaga will probably win that game. Same thing with Arizona Alabama. I think Arizona will probably win that game as well. Creighton Villanova, I think, could be a sneaky one just because Villanova, at least in recent history, has been pretty good. Last year they weren't really good, losing out on their coach. I think his name's Matt Wright. He won Villanova, I think, 2 national championship titles. And Creighton they've slowly been climbing up in the rankings in the March Madness tournament. Like, they just slowly move up, like, one ranking every year. I think last year they were ranked number 5. This season they're at 12 right now, but in the tournament that might equate to a 4 seed maybe if they stay at 12 or even move up a couple more spots. And then UConn Seton Hall, I think, is also quite interesting just because Seton Hall acquired the coach of the, you all remember St. Peter's. They acquired the St. Peter's coach right after they made their historic run as a 15 seed to the Sweet 16. And UConn is the, of course, national championship winners from last year. So I think that game could be a pretty sneakily interesting one. Okay. Hold on. I just had the NFL link. Why? Why does it do this to me? Okay. Actually, this graphic is really awful. Okay, so we're going to go to the NFL website here for the playoff picture. I like the graphic better. And it also shows teams that have clinched a playoff spot, and then, of course, the teams that are in the hunt. So for the NFC, there's 3 teams that have clinched their playoff spots so far. You've got the Niners, Cowboys, and Eagles. I don't think anyone's really surprised by this. Maybe the Cowboys, but the Cowboys they usually will get into random hot streaks in the regular season. They had a better playoff run than I thought they were going to have last year, to be completely honest. This year, though, the Cowboys seem to be even more inconsistent. For them, they crushed the Eagles either last week or 2 weeks ago. And, but then they just got absolutely crushed by the Bills. They also got crushed by the 49ers, too, when they played them towards the beginning of the year. But then they went on a hot streak and won a bunch of games. And they've been pretty dominant in those wins. So for, the Cowboys, it's just, there's dramatic highs and then there's dramatic lows. So I don't really, they make the playoff, I'm not sure. I don't think I'm going to trust them as much as I should have last year. 49ers, they're tied with the Ravens for the best record right now in the NFL at 11-3. 49ers they're stacked. I mean, they're stacked all the time. But, I mean, one of the reasons they're able to stack themselves up like this is because of Brock Purdy's contract. They're able to pay players and like just create a great set of weapons on the offense and a great defense. Like they're just able to really build a team because of their budget, because of Brock Purdy's contract. I think Brock Purdy makes less than $1 million, and for a quarterback, that's unheard of. But that's because he was the last pick in the draft, so his salary was pretty low. But I mean, I don't think Brock really cares about that. Brock cares more about winning than how much money he's making. And then Eagles, you have them as the third team to clinch a spot, and it says that they're at the 5 spot. Now that's because the way the NFL sets up their tournament is they have the 1 through 4 seeds are the winners from every conference, so the highest seed from every conference. So you have the Niners in the NFC West, Cowboys in the NFC East. There's still a battle for the top spot for the NFC South and NFC North. And given a couple weeks, Detroit will probably take the top spot in the North, and then they'll clinch a spot. They just have to keep winning. And then after that, for the NFC South, it's a battle between the Buccaneers, the Saints, and the Falcons, because they all have they had the same record going into last week. And then the Ravens are the only team in the AFC to clinch a playoff spot. The AFC is a little wild. The rankings there are the records that decide the rankings are just wild. You've got a lot of teams that have the same record. Let's look at these in the hunt rankings. So this is like their projected ranking. So like Lions are projected to get third, to get the 3rd spot. Buccaneers are projected to get the 4th spot. Vikings 6th and Rams 7th. Yeah, I mean Buccaneers pretty much have to win out and just hope that the other AFC South teams just lose. Yeah, the AFC though, Dolphins are projected to get the number 2 spot. I mean, they do have the second best record in the AFC at the moment. Chiefs are projected to get 3rd, which would be the first time for the Chiefs to not be the number 1 seed with Patrick Mahomes as their starting quarterback. I've seen people online say that the AFC Championship, like tournament bracket, like that side of the tournament, they call it the Arrowhead Invitational because the Chiefs host all their games, and then the AFC Championship is hosted at Arrowhead. So yeah. Then you've got the Jags at 4. They're 8-6, but yeah, no. And then other teams are kind of in the hunt that are not going to be conference winners for the AFC. You've got the Browns and the Bengals from the AFC North, and you've got the Colts from the AFC South. But in the bubble, like you can see that Texans are 8-6, Bills are 8-6, so are the Colts and the Bengals. Those 4 teams are all 8-6. The reason why like the Bengals and Colts are above the Texans and Bills is because of other matches, like tiebreaker matches. So, yeah. And then down lower, you've got the Steelers and Broncos tied at 7-7, Raiders at 6-8, and Chargers at 5-9. Then for the NFC, you've got the Seahawks and Saints at 7-7. Falcons are at 6-8. Packers are also at 6-8. and the Giants and Bears are both at 5-9. So I mean, like for these teams down low, like the 5-9 and 6-8 teams, they arguably don't really have a chance at making the playoffs. I mean, the only thing they can hope to do is win, but yeah, if the other teams above them keep winning, then they're just not going to get in. So they not only have to win, they have to hope that the other teams lose. So they've got to ask for a lot more. Those lower teams have to ask for a lot more. But these teams, like they're not, like these teams that are in the bubble, they're not safe by any means, except for I'd say the Lions are probably safe. Dolphins are probably safe. Chiefs might be safe. Broncos, if they win out and if Chiefs lose again, then Broncos might take that third spot away from the Chiefs. But yeah, I mean, Jags, like you've got Jags are 8-6, but so are the Texans. So if the Texans win and Jacksonville loses, then Texans could steal that number 4 spot away from Jacksonville. So like Jacksonville is not entirely safe. Like Jacksonville and the Chiefs, those are not teams that are safe. They're not, in my opinion, they're not guaranteed to be in the playoff. But what the Chiefs might do is they might bump down like the Bengals or the Colts just because their record is better. A 9-5 team is going to make it in over an 8-6 team in the wild card. See, like unlike college football, the NFL has like actual standards and an actual like setup for the playoffs. Like it's not necessarily a showcase, I guess, if that makes sense. Like they have actual guidelines. The committee for college football playoff, no guidelines. Don't trust the committee. And then looking at this this year for the NFC, we've got 3 teams that are tied at 7-7. If the Saints win out and the Bucks lose, Bucks are probably not going to make it in. They might sneak in if like the Vikings lose and the Rams lose and maybe the Seahawks lose one. But you know, I don't think another NFC South team will make it in. NFC South is considered one of the weaker divisions. Right now, really, the only way for an NFC South team to make it in is just to fill in that one spot to win out, in my opinion. They might get 2 win, though, if other teams lose, but I don't see it happening. I think Seahawks could sneak in over the Rams. Seahawks, they just had a huge win against the Eagles. Rams beat the Commanders. They're like both those teams are kind of hot right now. Vikings, I don't really know about them. Their whole quarterback situation is all messed up right now just because of Kirk Cousins being injured. But you know, that stuff like that happens. Like the Bengals are doing fine right now, which honestly I was kind of surprised, but I'm happy for them though. Like I think it's good that like they've got another quarterback that can lead the team to the playoffs, and they're not like just relying on Joe Burrow. I feel like a lot of teams, like you have a backup and then the backup's just not really reliable. I mean, even the Giants, like you look at their record at 5-9. I mean, the Giants got on a little bit of a win streak with their backup quarterback. Why can I not remember his name? DeVito. And he might take the starting job up from Daniel Jones, because at the beginning of the year, before Daniel Jones got injured, he wasn't really performing all that well. So, yeah. So, Danny DeVito might take that starting job. They might get rid of uh, Daniels just because of his contract, and they might be able to put more weapons around DeVito just because his contract is cheaper. So they might try to trade away Daniel Jones. And then the Bears, I don't know what to think about the Bears. I don't know. They always seem to just choke right at the end. I think for the Bears situation, I know lots of people, like, there's this huge debate right now on whether or not the Bears should keep Justin Fields or whether or not they should take Caleb Williams in the draft, because they're going to have the number one pick, most likely, because of the Panthers. Panthers traded away that pick. They're currently the worst team in the NFL, not just the NFC, but the NFL, with their record of 2-12. But if they somehow win a game, and if the Cardinals, or if they win 2 games and Cardinals lose 2 games, then the Bears might lose out on that number one pick. But I think for me, like, when I'm thinking about the Bears situation right now, I think the Bears should almost do something like what the Chargers did. Just fire the coach. Maybe keep their GM. Their GM seems to be doing pretty good. Like, he's making some good moves. Like the move to get DJ Moore, that was a good move by him. But I think they should just flush out the coaching staff and just start anew with the coaching staff. There's just too many. For me, there's too many positives to keep Justin Fields on the team. Like, he's good. He can run. He's composed in the pocket. Like, he can throw the ball. I mean, we saw that last week when they played the Browns. They just need better coaching staff and to draw better plays. I think that's what they're missing. If they do end up deciding to trade Fields, there's some benefits to trading him, but I don't think in the long term that would really work out. I think the Bears should probably franchise tag him. They keep the locker room on their side. If they lose the locker room, they're kind of screwed. Like, the team's just not going to want to perform, and then they're essentially going to turn into the Jets and just go into a insane drought for the playoffs, which would be just awful. But yeah. Speaking of the Jets, they are out of playoff contention after their loss to Miami last weekend. They just got absolutely crushed. Honestly, for the Jets, they did all the right moves. Like, they got Aaron Rodgers and everything, but yeah, it just, Aaron Rodgers got injured, and then they ended up still having to go back to Zach, and they haven't really been treating him all that well, so yeah, it has not been great for the Jets. But I think next year, or Aaron Rodgers, well, no, because Jets can't make the playoffs now. But next year, I think the Jets could maybe do something. They could do something. They could make a really unique run at the playoffs maybe next year. Titans, I'm kind of sad that they're eliminated. They've started to kind of find their stride with Will Levis as their starting quarterback. But he's making crazy plays, and they've just been winning. They've just been winning, and they've just been winning for a little bit. Their record says 5-9, but they've recently been kind of on a win streak. They upset the Dolphins, which is unexpected. Like, the Dolphins were up with like 2 minutes left, and then they gave up like 2 touchdowns. So I mean, the Titans, their future looks bright despite what their record says. Just like on paper, despite what it looks like on paper, their future looks bright, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I've got for the NFL. I mean Cardinals, they've been in shambles with the Kyler Murray injury and that whole situation. Commanders, um, I mean, there's nothing left. There's nothing to say about the Commanders other than the Commanders. We already talked about the Jets. Patriots, I think Bill Belichick leaves the Patriots and moves on to another team. I think Bill Belichick will probably take the job at the LA Chargers. Like him working with Justin Herbert, that would be a deadly combination. So next year, I mean, I think, and Bill is also a good GM. So I think him going to the Chargers would be a really great move for him and the Chargers. And it'll be nice for the Patriots to kind of, have a nice fresh start with a new coach. I don't know who the Patriots would pick up though, so we'll see. And speaking of coaching, if the Bears end up firing Eberflus, I have no clue who the Bears are going to try to hire. I think they were trying to hire. I think there was lots of speculation on whether or not Harbaugh would go to the NFL and coach the Bears. Jim Harbaugh was a former Bear, so I think it would be cool for the Bears to have him as a coach. But I think especially if Michigan wins a national title, I don't see that happening. I think he'll probably stay at Michigan if they win the national title. And yeah. That's all I have for NFL. I guess just all for today. There was no questions or anything put in the Discord, so yeah. I wanted to try to I just recently made the Discord. When I publish this to YouTube, I'm gonna put links up for that, so that way you can join. I kind of wanted the Discord set up so that way I could do almost like Q&A or there's a section or a segment that Stephen A does where he reacts to questions on Twitter. I want to kind of do something similar with Discord and just have a almost discussion board thing just to engage with everyone. I mean, there's just so much to talk about in sports, and I don't often get to it a lot in the episodes. So having the Discord be alive, just having a live discussion, a lively discussion on Discord, will open up more opportunities to just cover more stuff and just to talk about more stuff. But yeah, no, it just recently started up. Link will be in the bio, in the link tree that I'll put in the bio. All the links are there. All the links are in the link tree. And yeah. If you stayed the whole time, thank you. I think I'm going to be streaming either tomorrow or, let's see, if I want to do Thursday instead. No, we're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow, game starts at 6 Central. So yeah, I'm going to be up at 6 p.m. tomorrow streaming. Unless I have dinner. Or, no, I can eat dinner while I stream. Yeah, I've done that before. Okay, anyways, I'll see you all tomorrow if you come to the stream. Tomorrow.